Alright class, in this video I'm going to talk about the Pythagorean theorem, and before we go into some problems I do want to go over the structure of the Pythagorean theorem and where these numbers are coming from. So basically when we're looking at a triangle we're going to have a right angle. So a right angle is also known as 90 degrees. So whenever you see this symbol right here, that represents that is a 90-degree angle. So then we have two different parts that are the same. What I've highlighted here in light blue, those are called legs. Normally they will either be A and B or B and A, depending on, it's up to you what you want, but these will normally be labeled as those variables. Now the hypotenuse, which is this green highlighted area, that is the longest side of a triangle. That's always represented by the letter C. So when you see the formula, we're going to see where these variables are coming from. Okay, so most likely in these types of problems, you're going to try to figure out, okay, what's this missing side? What's the length of it? What's the length of this side? Or what's the length of that? You will always have two sets of information, and you'll always have one that's missing. So let's look at some practice problems. So here are the steps. The first thing you want to do is determine the legs and the hypotenuse of the right angle. And then you're going to substitute numbers for the missing values in this formula right here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then you're going to solve for the missing variables, and you're going to make sure that your answer makes sense. The hypotenuse should be the largest number. So notice here how the legs are slightly less than the hypotenuse. So this number should always be bigger than the rest. Okay, so let's look at some of these problems. It says here, note the Pythagorean theorem only works for right triangles. Okay, so it only works with the right triangles. And let's see this problem here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and highlight my legs here. Alright, so basically my length of 5, because it is smaller than this hypotenuse right here, this is going to be one leg and this is going to be my second leg. I will label 5 as A, so A equals 5. B equals 12, because the legs are always, the letters are always A and B. Okay, C is always the hypotenuse, so this should be C right here. So let's see what I can fill in here. Label the legs and the hypotenuse. So 5 centimeters is A. We'll use the color. B is 12, and the missing side is C. So when I plug this in, notice that A squared is first, so I will write 5 squared in the parentheses, because this is, my letter A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The next number that I'm going to fill in is number 12. And then I don't know C squared, so I'm going to go ahead and write C in there. Let me use the color that I've been using, actually. So this will be C. Now we're going to try to solve for the missing variable. I know that 5 squared is 25. Plus 12 squared is 144 equals C squared. I'm almost done. Now all I have to do is add 25 plus 104. Okay, so when I add these two together, I will get 169 equals C squared. Now to undo a squared, the opposite, I want you to think about like when we're doing equations, the opposite of addition is subtraction, the opposite of multiplication is division, and vice versa. The opposite of a square is basically we're going to be taking the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of C and the square root of 169. So my answer is going to be the square root of 169. I'll show you with my calculator here. Do 169, square root is 13. So I have 13 equals, when I take the square root of C squared, I am left with C. So the length of my hypotenuse is 13. The last step, just to make sure, is the hypotenuse the largest side? If I put 13 here, that is the largest number out of those two. Okay, so yes, my answer is yes. So those are the type of questions that we're going to be dealing with. Let's look at some other problems. All right, so if you're ever confused on what the hypotenuse is, I want you to know that the hypotenuse is always across the right triangle. So if we were to look over on the problem before, the hypotenuse is right across that square that you see there. So always use that trick to help you. Now we can label our points. It doesn't matter which one you want. I'm going to go ahead and label this 10 centimeters as A and the missing side as B. Alright, so I've labeled my sides here. Now, 10 centimeters, I've labeled that as my A, so I placed that in, I put the letter A there. 25 is not B, it's actually across that right triangle, so this is my hypotenuse, so that's going to be my letter C, and the missing side is B. Now what I'm going to do is plug these numbers into the square. So the first one, remember it's always A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So let's see. I have 10 centimeters and I'm going to set 10 squared. B squared, I have no idea what that is, so I'll figure that out in a second. And then I know that C squared is 25. Oops, let's make that green. This is 25. So let's go ahead and solve the missing side. 25 squared, that will be, I'm looking at my calculator, 625. Now treat this like a normal equation. We want to have b by itself, so we're going to subtract 100 from both sides. This is the subtraction property of equality. 625 minus 100 is 525. Now remember from the previous problem, the opposite of a square is a square root. So we're going to find the square root of 525 to give us our final answer. So 525, let's see, square root of that is 22, approximately 22.91. I'm always going to round to the second digit here, or the hundreds place, so I'm going to write 22.91. And I'm going to use centimeters just so that I can label it. Alright, so my other leg is 22. Is the hypotenuse still the largest side? Well, I have 10. That's the smallest. It's shorter than 25. And this is technically 22.91. It is smaller than 25. So yes, this is still the smallest angle. I'm sorry, the largest side. So that's right. Yes. All right. So hopefully this video has helped you on how to solve these problems. Please make sure that you've labeled your triangle and know that the hypotenuse is always the side that's across from that right angle. If you have any questions, please let me know. Good luck solving these types of problems.